Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Tyreek Hill, Davante Adams, 4 legitimate NFL superstars at their respective positions are going to be in different locations next season. Matt, who do you think of those 4 big blockbuster trades? Which do you think is the most impactful?
First of all, let's just start out by saying every single one of them is impactful and extremely exciting. I mean, if we had time to talk about every single one, I think both of us would and go into great detail. But right away, I'm going to say Davante Adams to the Raiders looks like it's going to be one of the most impactful, because this was a Raiders team last year that you saw do really impressive with dealing with so many different things, whether it was the coaching situation, it was Henry Ruggs. They were able to get past that in a very, very competitive division and still make the playoffs. And then in a game against the eventual, Super Bowl representatives from the AFC, the Cincinnati Bengals play a great game, and even with some controversy, make it a game. So this was a team that looked really impressive, and they were also able to do all this with Hunter Renfrow basically becoming the number 1 wide receiver. Now you add Davante Adams, Renfrow becomes a dangerous and deadly number 2. You still have Darren Waller as your tight end. Josh Jacobs is a great running back. And then Derek Carr is definitely capable of utilizing those weapons, along with the coach Josh McDaniels, who's going to be able to create some impressive schemes for that offense. I think that was a huge move for them to stay competitive and stay relevant in an AFC West that is absolutely insane at this point. And it still makes them true playoff contenders. And once you get into the playoffs, you never know what can happen. They could definitely get exciting at that point. And then the other part of that, and the flip side, is losing Davante Adams for the Packers. Obviously, they got some great draft picks back, but you're still basing that on, the draft and hoping that Rodgers can elevate whoever they end up bringing into that wide receiver room. Is not Davante Adams. It's still going to be interesting to see how they do it. They haven't really addressed it yet, but this is going to be one of those moves where you're going to see who won and who lost pretty quickly on, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the Davante Adams trade is massive, particularly for the Raiders, because I think this improves them drastically. You mentioned it. You talk about just the duo of Darren Waller, Davante Adams, the fits that's going to cause for defenses. Those are 2 guys that on any given week you would want to double ideally, and you're just not going to be able to do that with both of those guys on the field, with Hunter Renfrow in the slot doing what he does. And obviously you have, you mentioned it, Josh Jacobs is a severely underrated running back in the NFL. Derek Carr has proved that, he's a legitimate, top 10-ish quarterback. And especially now with the best receiver he's ever played with in the NFL, the same guy who he played with in college. So there's a legit rapport there. This is scary. And again, with the new head coach, McDaniels, who I think is in the right spot, I think it can get really scary for the AFC West, for the AFC, if the Raiders, can turn what it looks like on paper, turn that into real on-field results. But for me, I think it's Deshaun Watson. Obviously I said last week, I think this could go down as either the best or the worst trade in NFL history. And I just think that's facts. I mean, I think the Cleveland Browns, GM Andrew Berry, I think he has a great idea of what this roster is. And it's a playoff caliber roster. It's a roster that can compete for a Super Bowl. And obviously he felt after last season that Baker Mayfield at quarterback was not the answer, especially when you look around at the AFC, you look around at the rest of that division, and Baker Mayfield just doesn't stack up. Now you have a legitimate locked in top 5 quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Aside from obviously the off-field stuff that still has to work itself out. And obviously after a likely suspension, they can really get things rolling. But, you look at the rest of that division, which is tough with the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, obviously the reigning AFC champions, and the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are always going to be competitive. At the very least, they're going to be 500. You look at the Browns roster, you add a quarterback in there, I think they're at the top of that list when Deshaun Watson is able to return and play football as we seen in 2020 when he led the league in passing yards for an awful Houston Texans team. So I think the Browns with Deshaun Watson in tow, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And I think that just changes the entire landscape of that franchise. Again, this is the Browns we're talking about. Yeah. During our lifetime, what franchise has been worse than the Browns? I don't think there is one. Maybe one of the New York teams or Detroit, yeah. But the Browns has historically been awful. Yep. We saw how big of a deal it was a couple of seasons ago when they won a playoff game.
Oh, yeah.
when they won a playoff game over a division rival. I think Deshaun Watson can take them to even newer heights, and that should be scary for that division, for that conference, and for the NFL as a whole. So that's where I'm thinking. I think Deshaun Watson's arrival in Cleveland is the most impactful of all of those. Do you have any last words before we get up out of here, my guy?
I mean, I might as well just say this right now. The fact that we didn't talk about Russell Wilson and Tyreek Hill does not mean we don't think those are impactful. We talked about it on another episode of Simple Questions.
And here's my thing too. Let me interject about Russell Wilson and even Davante Adams in Oakland. I think the Denver Broncos have drastically improved. Same thing for the Las Vegas Raiders. But that improvement, I don't know, even will result in a division title or a couple of playoff wins.
Very true.
I think, like I said, when I'm talking about the Browns, as good as Lamar Jackson, the Ravens are, as good as Joe Burrow, the Bengals are, and as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to play under Mike Tomlin, I think the Browns are just different. The rest of that roster is just different. Now they probably have the best quarterback in that division, and that's just a different ball game. That's just a different ball game entirely. But that's going to do it for us, though. We can't wait to see how each of these blockbuster trades play out, see who the real winners and losers of these deals are. But that's going to do it for us. Catch us on the next episode of Simple Question. For Scott Proctor and my guy, Matt Morris, right here. We'll catch you then.